Hazlo cada día, baby, hasta abajo ese colesterol. Ni una ni dos, como tu body, modo avión. Se escapa tu cocora.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Walnut Panel discussion. I first want to thank the panelists for volunteering and in leading this discussion. We have a couple of, John is an old pro at it. Tatiana's done it before. Mufadal, Juan Pablo, and Christina's their first time. So thank you very much for all the hard work you've put in preparing for this discussion. We're going to focus on 4 topics: current supply, market development activities, innovation, and future supply outlook. We had tariffs up there and decided to take it off. It may pop up in a discussion or so here and there, but obviously that's a fluid situation. We're all watching it carefully and are optimistic there's some good things going to come out of it, but we will see. There are a couple of mandated slides that I will go through, primarily the statistics of the current statistics of crop size, consumption, et cetera. And everyone knows probably that, when publicly traded companies have conference calls or issues press releases, they kind of have a statement that basically says, in summary, forward-looking statements may not be exactly right. So in early May, it's a little difficult to forecast the crop in Northern Hemisphere for this fall. Juan Pablo is going to be pretty close with his numbers because he's almost done harvesting. But I want to tell you how we went about that. Every one of us talked to growers, we talked to processors, we looked at the data, we looked at bearing acres, and we looked at trees. So we think for today we've got a number that makes sense, but there's a lot of weather between now and the fall that could help or hurt us. So that's kind of how we went about it. So hopefully you will agree that the numbers are reasonable. I do want to remind my American friends that we're going to be talking in metric tons, so the numbers may not match exactly. I'll probably divert to short tons just by habit. When you look, let's see if my pointer will work. Nope. So when you look at total supply, the way the chart works, beginning stock from last year, crop size gives us total supply, and then ending stock. And first, I'd like to point out the 72,000 metric tons of carry-in the United States. That is a number that's submitted for basically a snapshot on August 31st. That is not a big number. We have to keep inventory, particularly for the U.S. customer base, for September shipments and October shipments. September, October shipments are a little over 100,000 metric tons. So basically, the carry-in inventory will be shipped out sometime in mid-October. And because we certainly, unlike our international shipments where it kind of goes at one time and ends, because we want to avoid the summer shipping containers that can create issues. But that's why that number is at. Probably the lowest we could ever get is maybe 10,000 tons fewer than that, because we got to continue to service our customers. In the United States, September, October are very, very large shipping months. When we look at the crop size for next year, for this fall, we have, China at about 1.5 million metric tons, similar to last year. Christina will talk about that specifically in a moment. In the U.S., about 616,000 metric tons, and that is about a 14% increase from last year. Of course, last year was a very, very, very small crop. We'll talk a lot about that in a moment. And then going down the line, about 80% of the world's walnuts are grown in the U.S. and China, and that's the other growing areas are certainly important to them and to the entire worldwide numbers. I think when we look at 168 at Chile for this year, I think Juan Pablo will have some comments on how he's feeling about that as it's, 80% done with the harvest, maybe a little more. So when we look at the crop, the carry-in inventory, and the total supply, it's going to be up about 3.5% versus last year. So again, it's forecasted numbers. Are we going to be exactly right? We're not. But we think for today's snapshot look, they're reasonable numbers. So John, I want to start with you. You had a forecast last year as chairman of about 700,000 short tons. It came out at 600,000. So you do know that's why you're not chairman today.
Yeah, I got.
And it's why I probably won't be chairman next year.
We're going to move over here every
So
year.
what happened, John?
Really good question. I guess, Gary, if you look at California agriculture overall, this phenomenon was not isolated just to walnuts, where expectations of a crop were to be at a certain level and obviously came in much shorter. The two factors when you kind of try to put this equation together are obviously environmental and the growing side, the inputs. So we know that, and we might argue on the weight of this relative to what impacted the heat wave that we had in the mid to early summer have on the overall crop. It was unexpected, it was intensive, it had a lot of length and depth to it that we had never seen. Traditionally in California, when we have these types of heat waves, it tends to be later in the season, and the immediate reflex or the immediate effect to the crop is seen very quickly in sunburn or drop or whatnot. Because of the timing of that heat wave, there wasn't anything immediate to growers or processors as they went through the orchard. But because of the depth of it, we knew something was probably going to give, but weren't too sure. The other component is obviously the inputs that the growers were very restrictive for economic reasons, and we've talked about that they were putting towards the orchards. How healthy were the orchards going into this growing season? And again, there's debate on when you are restricting inputs into orchards, what type of tail does this have? 1 or 2 years ago, since the industry has been struggling economically from a growing standpoint, did it kind of show itself more when the trees were under stress? So what percentage we saw relative to grower input to the heat wave we had, it's hard to see what percentage had weight to it to another. This coming year, maybe we'll be able to answer more of that formula, but that we can have a more stable weather pattern this year, and then we can measure what type of inputs and from the growing perspective, how they weight each other overall. But even from that standpoint, when you step back and you look at what the state provided on their estimate, directionally they also had it correct. They had that the crop was going to drop, but it was dropping faster than they anticipated. The adage that we have in California is, small crops get smaller as you go along, and that was exactly what happened. So it caught everyone by surprise. And then the real final curveball we had in California was that because of the percentage of chandlers that we have now in the ground, 60% plus, and that being at the tail end of the harvest cycle, we weren't sure where we were at. We were getting field reports. People were going through orchards very, very quickly. We weren't too sure where we were on the curve. So by the time we had that realization, I mean, gosh, Gary, it was November, December before we started even really have a firm grasp on it. So that was it was a very unique situation that we found ourselves during the fall time period relative to that. So everybody, prospectively, was missing it. We had the direction correct. We didn't know the depth of it, but I know, the industry is still trying to investigate as to how we can get better from an estimate standpoint and watching it very closely.
Yeah, I found it odd, even when the USDA estimate was released in late August, early September, most people in California thought, well, that's way too low.
Right.
It was 670,000 short tons, and I think people were still thinking, well, it's 720, 730, even at that moment. And it really wasn't until we started looking at Tulare coming in mid-September that we said, holy cow,
Right.
this is shocking to how far off that crop was, and it just continued to that. So you talked a little bit about Mother Nature. You also talked about grower input costs. So growers, the economic situation for growers, particularly in California, probably Chile as well, had been very difficult. I think we had talked about in London and last year, probably collectively, U.S. growers probably lost $1.5 billion collectively, not, and so they reduced input costs. And that probably was a significant part. So with that in mind, as prices has come up, do you see growers starting to increase input costs for this crop?
Yeah, they are. I mean, they are, incrementally where they can reinvest into their orchards in some measure way. But because of where the trees stood and also the age of the trees, the responsiveness of it, that's still not quite understood as to how quickly a walnut tree may respond when you were to move forward with full inputs, full fertilizer, the full treatment. So it's still, there's a belief that it's at least a couple-year cycle, and it's a function of the vigorousness of the tree. Are you trying to do this with a 25-year-old Chandler tree, or are you doing this with a 10-year-old tree? Yeah. And how do they respond?
Good points. Juan Pablo, so you're almost done with your harvest now, and the economics for Chilean growers has been difficult too for the last few years. Did they cut back on input costs, or did they maintain a roughly the same level?
Well, 10 years ago, they were spending whatever they want, and the price hold everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the last 3-4 years, they're being not cutting, but let's say not as California, but taking more care to be more efficient. And the thing that has been happening mostly the last 4 years is that all the hectares that are low production hectares, or they've just taken them out. And I would say the last 4 years, we've been maybe losing 10% of the total surface in walnuts. So like 4 or 5 years ago, we were at, let's say, 40,000 hectares in Chile. Right now, we are somewhere around 35 to 38,000. So I believe it's not, it's been better use of resources, but taking the hectares, or I mean, taking the trees that are not very productive, take them out.
Yep. So there's still a fair amount of the Sur variety in Chile. Are they coming out a little bit every year?
Yeah. Chile, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, they have maybe 20% of Surs. Now, I believe in Chile production, 96% is only Chandlers. Surs are getting out, Howards, all the other non-Chandler varieties are taking them out. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, good. And the estimate that we've had up there and working with a number, that still looks pretty reasonable for what Chile is?
Yeah. I mean, as you said, we are just finishing harvest, maybe 90% by now, it's already done. We've seen the numbers, the receptions, maybe around 5% less of the official, the first estimation that was the number that we see on the screen, made by Chilenet, and we believe it's going to be close, but maybe 5% less of that.
Okay. Christina, can you give us some information in China about, with the gigantic amount of hectares or acres planted, how much in China is farmed and how much is kind of a native crop?
Okay. Yes, Gary. I want to start from an overview of Chinese cultivation area. Walnut is a very common tree nut in China comparing to other nuts. Everyone in China knows walnut, but not everyone knows macadamia or pecan. And walnuts are grown in 21 provinces and autonomous regions throughout China, and planted over 500,000 hectares in China. But most of the orchards are planted and grown by small farmers. So, and they average about 10 to 15 Chinese mu, which is about 0.6 2/3 of hectare by each family. In Yunnan province, in southwest China, which is the biggest plantation there. Yes, there are many planted, but the problem is many of them are planted in the hills, where it's very hard for picking up, and for the younger generations, they would like to go to the city for work. Yeah. That's a problem, and not enough labor or farmer to pick up the walnut, and especially when the price of the walnut is very low, especially in 2022 and 23, and during the COVID time, there are not enough farmers for picking up. But once we see a slight price increasing for last year and this year, when the price goes to a level, I think they will come back. If it's better off for them to pick up the nuts and sell them than work in the city, they will come back. So, and there are not many non-bearing plantations in China. And I don't think, as far as I know, I don't think there are any government subsidiary to the farmers. So I think there will be steady, slightly increase in the next few years.
So if I understood that, so the government is not subsidizing planting. The economics have been challenging for everyone on the farm side. So you see stability to a slightly decrease in production in China?
Yes, and this year there were not enough rain in the spring, so I think this will be steady crop for this year, but we'll see. Yeah.
Tatiana, educate us about Eastern Europe. It's a lot of countries that when you say Eastern Europe, a lot of countries, and tell us about how much of that is cultivated, how much is native crops, and what are some of the challenges that farmers in Eastern Europe have faced?
Thank you for the question. As you previously mentioned, it's a lot of weather from today to harvesting period, so it's a little bit difficult to give the exact numbers, but we expect in our region the crop may be 50% more than the previous one. And it's due to the fact that it was planted some new orchards 5, 6 years ago, and they are starting to bring the commercial crop, to come with the commercial crop. But if we will face the same situation from the previous season with the heat waves or very rainy weather like it was in the harvesting season in 24, so the number could change a little bit, but yes.
Has the conflict in Ukraine, has that impacted production, or has that impacted the ability to harvest? Because Ukraine is a significant part of Eastern Europe.
You are right. It's not impacting the harvest size, but impacting the possibility to make the harvesting like a process. Because the specific of our region that maybe 60 to 70% of the crop comes not from the commercial orchard, from the normal orchard. It comes from the different planting areas like forest zone, like delimitation zone between the fields, or the small orchards like mentioned Christina, because it's traditional. All the small farmers have several trees near the house, and it's was like traditional Moldova and Ukraine. But all these walnuts should be collected manually, not by machine. And as soon as it's lack of labor in our region, especially in Ukraine, because a lot of people left the country, I think it will be again challenging, especially if the weather condition won't be favorable. But and we also have in Ukraine these regions that have the walnut trees and walnut orchards, but they are under the occupation, so it's definitely not the primary target to harvest walnuts in this region. So yes.
What is the future look? Is there a lot of new plantings in Eastern Europe, a lot of non-bearing?
Yes. Yes, we have support from the government in Ukraine and Moldova. Government cover the costs of the planting and the costs of the planting material. It helps a lot to farmers to renew the trees, because the main problem in our region is the aging of the trees. So yes, and the very old varieties that are not very efficient from point of yield and crop size and else. And as government comes with the help, a lot of farmers are willing to plant the new orchards, but exists another problem. We don't have a good source of planting raw material in the region, because in Chile and in the US, there's a lot of institutions making research on the new varieties, or to improve the existing varieties to make it resistant for the drought or frost. In Moldova, unfortunately, all these years wasn't developed. I'm speaking about Moldova. Probably in Ukraine, situation is the same. Wasn't developed the scientist approach to developing a new varieties. We have good results. Farmers have good results on planting Chandler variety, Fernor, and some local variety named Pischansky. These varieties really come with the good crop, good color, quality of the product. But I think that the more input should be done from the state, from the research institution, to help farmers to have a good planting material.
Christina talked about future supply in China, so let's skip to that, the outlook going forward. Juan Pablo, what are Chilean growers doing? Are they taking trees out? Are they planting more trees? And talk a little bit about the water situation.
Well, I already mentioned that the last 4 years, because, well, the situation you explained, that it's been really difficult for growers to make money due to the low prices. Yeah, it's not, let's say, it's been decreasing every year. Now, well, we are seeing better prices on the market, so hopefully it will, this decreasing will stop. But yeah, it's in Chile. There's been planting. There's other varieties, other species like hazelnuts, like cherries or avocados that is becoming more profitable. So uh, let's say it's not the tension. It's not in walnuts right now. So I believe if we have better results, maybe we'll see that the trend will stop and we will have a more stable surface. But in terms of volume, what to expect in the next, let's say, 5 years, because there's none been new plantations in Chile, not significantly. So we can expect like a number like we have right now. Like this is our, I believe, our roof. We cannot expect more than that. So at least for the next coming year. So we will see if prices help. Maybe we will see something better. But right now, we cannot wait more than what we have this year.
John, pivot to California. What's the outlook? Current bearing acres, new plantings. How are walnut growers thinking about the future?
Well, I mean, like, right now they're still in a moment of trying to get their hands around, how to move forward. You still do have a level of trees that are getting removed. The trees that are getting removed, though, are older. They are legacy-based still. Bearing acreage right now, we've got about 370,000 acres coming out, but there is still a level that are actively getting removed. But we are not seeing any orchards of great vigor or high production that are getting taken off the grid. Growers that are removing right now are mostly doing one or two things. They're either moving into another permanent crop, or a lot of them are just trying to buy time.
Yep.
So the orchards that are getting removed in 5 years may come back into walnuts. They're not gone and removed forever, because obviously with groundwater, and there's places in California that do just a beautiful job of growing walnuts that essentially can come back into walnuts. It's just going to take a little bit of time, and so there's a little evaluation as we're going through.
So I hate to use the word stable, because we've been anything but stable. A lot of volatility the last number of years for lots of reasons. COVID, port congestion, economic things for growers. So they're going to take a wait and see approach in California.
Yeah.
And so bearing acres are going to be probably in the neighborhood they are today for a while.
Right. I would anticipate, because you've got a couple moving factors there. You've got people that are trying to reevaluate their farming model that they've had. You've got generational discussions that are going on with farming families of what they want to do with their existing land. And then secondarily too, nurseries are reactive as well. So if you do have an open piece of land, nurseries have to gear up for that. And because of the past recent history, nurseries aren't quite ready to flip the switch either. So there's a lag in there.
But when you look at, I'll go short tons because that's what we talk, and is it fair to say we're going to see some 700,000 ton plus crops in the future? Might be a while. We may not see an 800,000 ton crop for quite a while.
Right.
That kind of.
I would think it's going to be a very stable situation in terms of acreage. Maybe again a little bit of a decrease, a consolidation relative to the varieties. We've got Chandlers at 60%, and then you add the Tuileries and Howards, and that wraps up about the entire crop. You've got other varieties, and that's just going to continue to concentrate in the near future, I would think.
Got a question from the audience, and said, what is the future of California walnut industry with its recent economic challenges, and what challenges will it continue to face? So I think you've answered that question with that, probably looking in terms of bearing acres. Mother Nature can be volatile, but the bearing acres are probably going to be relatively the same for a while, it looks like. Another question, there's a rumor that the USDA objective estimate, because of cutbacks, might not happen this year. Have anything been decided on that? Probably not yet.
Yeah, when it comes to topics relative to the federal government, it's a moving target. But yeah, that's definitely something that is in the industry's mind. Robert Verloop here, CEO of the Walnut Board, has been keeping his pulse on it very quickly, and that trying to address it and just trying to understand what those scenarios might look like. But yeah, it's way too early to
Yep.
say.
So let's pivot from supply, current and future, and let's go to the fun stuff. Let's talk about market development, and Mufadal, I'm going to go straight to you. What do things look like in India? Obviously, you're probably going to use the word tariff here in a moment. So give us an update on how you see walnuts in India as a consuming nation going forward.
Well, Gary, thank you for having me here. This is my first time, so forgive the nervousness. But the great thing about walnuts in India is India knows about walnuts, have been consuming them for a long time. And about 9 years ago, the government of India allowed import of walnuts. That was a great move. And year after year, India has surprised everyone. We have imported more walnuts consistently, and there's been phenomenal growth. The beauty about walnuts and many dry fruits in India are that it's an aspirational item. As people become more affluent, they increase their consumption. New consumers keep getting added on. It's a healthy nut. It has great attributes. And in a way, thanks to COVID, the consumption of all dry fruits in India has increased tremendously. The walnut story in India is a little bit interesting because when we started importing walnuts from the US and Chile, the duties on walnuts were about 30%. They came in quite well. And then sometime about 2017, the government decided to increase this to 100%. The market took a little while to adjust, but somehow the product was quite resilient, and it continued coming in. As it continued coming in, there was good consumption and growth. I have to say this, but in the almond panel yesterday, Dinika projected various consumption patterns across India, and they were pretty spot on. There is growth in all aspects, and it's been fantastic.
I got a question that's really relevant, and it's coming from a retailer that says we've been listening carefully to the producer's remarks and concerns about low crops, tight supply. And I think I can say, and I'd like everybody to chime in, it's just not going to grow like it was, economic reasons, and in some cases, water supply. But we're still going to have plenty of walnuts to service our customers. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, even based on the previous challenges we've had, the California walnut industry is still in business and still actively promoting and working on market development, and we still have the crops to move and market and do those things that we've done for many, many years quite successfully. So yeah, we are still very much open for business. We just have to find the new supply model and again address accordingly.
Fundamentally, we just can't live off a $2 walnuts.
Right. The economics.
$2 per pound walnut. The economics, because we think about what's happened with inflation for farmers has been real, whether it's input materials, nutrients, whether it's electricity, because all of us spend a lot of money pumping water. So that's what we hope we don't see. The market certainly got overheated this year as a result of probably grower inputs. They're going to start inputting again. So I don't think we're going to have a supply problem, a shortage, but I don't think we're going to see $2 a pound pricing either, because that will put us back into that. I know John and I both we've been telling customers around the world that walnut in 22 and 23 walnut prices are going to go up. We're not sure when, but they had to go up because it was economically unsustainable for walnut farmers. Other commodities certainly went through the same thing, so we'll find a balance there, but I don't see a shortage, barring some catastrophic Mother Nature event. That can always come in play, especially in today's times. So let's move, let's continue on market development for a while. And Christina, what are the primary uses for walnuts in China?
Yes.
Because most of your walnuts are consumed in country.
Yes. As I just said, walnut is a common product in China. Everybody knows it. I would say 80% of the consumption in China are consumed in bulk, in shell as a snack. And those in bulk are sold more than packaged products. And besides that, I know walnut milk is very famous. Yes, because there's one listed company in China produce walnut milk. I think they are using more than 50,000 tons each year. Not as many as you think. That counts less than 5%, 3 to 4% of total crop in China. And besides that, we see some interesting application in recent years. Not a lot of them, but very interesting things like they're using the diced and walnut in bubble tea chain stores, and they use walnuts widely in bakery. Like walnut bread is very popular in China, and just this last year we see fresh blanched walnut is very popular, growing sales in those fruit store chain stores. So those are very popular now, and there's small amount were used for the walnut oil, but not very big.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop you, interrupt you, but I've got a very interesting question from the audience. Obviously, information on the size of the crop, inventory levels, et cetera, is very difficult to find out in China. The United States reports that every month. Chile reports it every month. Is there any conversation, or is it possible that one day we'll have transparency on on data? That there's a centralized place to where data is submitted on crop size, on shipments, et cetera. Is that something that's likely or unlikely to happen?
Thank you for the question. It's a very good one. Yeah, because I think it's not being China doesn't want to be transparent. It's because, just as I said, those walnuts are growing in 21 provinces, all over China, and by small farmers. It's really hard to get the exact numbers. And the Chamber of Commerce each year will collect from each province, but still, it's just too hard to count, you know.
Yeah. So, well, one day. Let's leave it at that. So.
Well, you're welcome to come to China.
Come count.
I'm gonna okay.
Come count, Gary.
I'm gonna take you up on that. So, John, let's move to, we're going to run out of time here pretty quickly. So let's move to, other market development things. What are people in this industry doing to drive demand? We've got a healthy product, as all the commodities here that are represented as healthy product, but so do we in walnuts. So what efforts is the Walnut Marketing Board and other activities in the U.S. to drive demand?
Yeah, I can give you my opinion, but obviously feel free to corner Robert wherever he is, and he'll give you all the great detail and granularity as to what the industry is up to. But I mean, suffice it to say that the mantra has been to be continue to work on the message in which we were successful. Walnuts have still held their value today as they've been 10 years ago, and develop, the research, the health research is still ongoing. When you see U.S. consumers today and you talk to them and any kind of feedback you get, the health message is just very, very clear cut. So we continue to build on that. We continue to try and work the product into new and different channels, even within the grocery store, not just maybe your center aisle, but we work in the produce aisle as well to get it into it, because walnuts can be handled as a fresh produce item. Though the industry is also working very aggressively towards, just from a merchandising standpoint, get it in front of the consumer. Walnuts can show very, very well, and again, it translates very quickly, the communication of it. So I think the general overarching approach that the industry has had is continue to engage, continue to look for real return on investment, to be flexible, to be very flexible and be able to pivot where opportunities present themselves in the U.S. market, and just attack it in a very aggressive measure, maintaining what we've had in the past as well.
And how many countries does the California Walnut Board, how many countries are they working in right now to drive demand and awareness of not just the health side, but other attributes for walnut?
Yeah, right now I believe it's nine regions, countries that they're actively working on. There's plenty more in the hat that they're working in developing one with government programs that are coming at us. So the industry, again, I think is doing a good job of being as proactive as possible into just not the traditional markets that California's always had, but those new and emerging markets relative to the current cost structure, because you need to start somewhere, and you have to start investing at all times. You don't want to be on your heels at all in these crop cycles.
Yeah, one of the more positive things, and there are a lot of positive things coming out of Sacramento with the California Walnut Board. One of them is related to snacks. Historically, around the world, walnuts have been a snack. In the U.S., it's been a baking culinary. We all need to move past we don't want to lose the brownie and chocolate chip business, but we need to move towards a snack. And I know there's a big focus on that at the Walnut Marketing Board. And there's actually some data to support that it's working. In our business, we're seeing consumers, for culinary and baking, they're buying an 8-ounce bag or a 4-ounce bag. And then we are seeing an incredible increase in our 2-pound bag, and that is related to snacking. So I think that's working. At some point, the goal is that for it to be, it's a healthy product that is part of the snack. People bake not every week, not every day, sometimes not every month, unless you're in the Northeast or Upper Midwest where it's colder climate. But people snack daily. And I think everybody in this room, my career started at Frito-Lay with potato chips and Doritos and Fritos, fried products, not crazy healthy for you. And we need to, not just walnuts, but all of us, we need to capture some of that snack share of stomach from the fried products. So I think that's a mission that we're all working on, and the Walnut Marketing Board is playing a vital role in that. So,
And I think too that, Gary, a little bit is that there's that opportunity as the consumer is becoming, very aware of where their dollars are spent, the cost of food, the cost of eating out in the United States, in California, can be very expensive. So they are trying to pivot and use that dollar towards, healthier snacks
yeah.
versus than something that's maybe not as nutritionally dense.
Yeah, and the INC for the last 35 or 40 years was a focus on the health benefits of all of our products. And I think I find out when I talk to consumers that they understand the health benefits of our products. And I think we're starting to get some real scale in the U.S. on the snacking side. Blue Diamond does a tremendous job with their snack almonds, with the various bold, savory and sweet offerings. Sometimes I get tired when I'm on an airplane and I'm sitting next to somebody. Where do you work? I say, I work at Diamond. And they said, oh, can a week. So that is, so we're trying to play in that role at Diamond ourselves and others in California with bold flavors for our snack portfolio. So thanks for the support on that as well to everyone. So Chile has a marketing group and where are their resources being used?
Well, in Chile, we're kind of new in this marketing walnuts let's say, increase consumption. We started about 3 years ago, like following the example, of course, of California and INC in promoting. We started in India, and we kept, I believe most of our resources has been there. We've been promoting on the big markets, on supermarkets, social media, everywhere. And I believe it's been pretty successful. Also, we did some marketing campaigns in Germany. Now we will start a new one in Spain, more focused on social media. But yeah, it's been, we are seeing the results, and I believe it's something that as an industry, everyone should be there, like trying to invest to promote consumption.
So we're running out of time, and if I ask for an extension, I'm probably not going to get it. So let's pivot to our last topic, innovation, which is fundamental to our success in the future. So, John, any comments on innovation that's happening particularly in the American market?
Yeah, I mean, you are seeing a level of innovation slowly come back into the category. I'll say very, very brief. I mean, we're launching a kettle walnut, seasoned walnuts per se. So that's one thing we're pivoting into and developing.
Yeah, I'm not very happy about that, but no.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's probably 4 or 5 processors in California that's doing some innovation in snack walnuts, I think we're going to starting to get some scale. We're starting to get scale at Diamond with that product. It's been a slow process, but steady state improvement in that business. We sort of have in our DNA innovation, new product development. We try to launch 2 to 3, sometimes as many as 5 products a year. We don't bat 1,000. Sometimes we hit a single or a double, or every once in a while a home run. We also strike out. But I guess if everything is successful, you're not probably trying hard enough. So I think that's going to continue to happen. At Diamond, we're launching a gluten-free pie crust, which the regular pie crust has been successful. So we're going to continue to do that, as many others that are in the processing and marketing side of walnuts. So thanks to everyone for doing that. So we got to wrap up. So first, particularly for those that never done this before, we did a great job. Thank you very much for participating and all your hard work. You did a great job, and the old pros did a great job as well. Thank you very much. So thank you.